In a world where life teetered on the brink and the future offered no certainty, surviving the Middle Ages required a resilience akin to tempered steel, strong yet flexible. Laborers worked fields with hardened hands beneath skies heavy with rain or conflict. They sang as they toiled, their laughter echoing above the millstone's grind, a defiant melody. Communities thrived on shared sustenance and burdens, where a candle's glow beside the dying offered comfort even when life was harsh. Disease spread through villages, unseen but dreaded. Yet faith was a bastion, laughter a solace. Each woolen cloak concealed a story of survival, enduring and resolute. Enter the vanished world of the Middle Ages, where each day tested survival, forging humanity's lasting spirit. Imagine an era demanding not just might, but flexibility, adaptation, and a remarkable resolve to endure. In this domain, existence wore a rugged, unyielding guise. Beneath it lay a persistence that reveals the extraordinary capacity to flourish despite life's challenges. Children were introduced early to life's sharp realities. As soon as they could walk, small hands joined the workforce in fields, learning vital tasks alongside family. These children lacked the youth as we know it today. Instead, they acquired knowledge under open skies as they tended crops and livestock. With each passing season, their roles shifted from play to crucial survival, making them essential to the family's existence. For them, work was more than a necessity. It was a form of instruction where games and chores merged in the effort to preserve their community. The years made them robust and wise. Their senses were attuned to nature's rhythms, their bodies hardened by toil and their minds sharpened by experience. Concurrently, women in the Middle Ages prepared for childbirth, a significant event fraught with peril, yet crucial for life's continuation. Without modern medical advancements, each birth was a struggle with mortality. Skilled midwives and elder women offered guidance, navigating dangers with rituals steeped in hope and fear. Nevertheless, women emerged with a resilience that commanded respect. Survivors became living embodiments of fortitude, imparting lessons from hearthside stories that tightly bound them to the social structure. The dimensions of joy and sorrow intertwined as they welcomed new life while acknowledging its fragile nature. Men found themselves balancing the roles of warrior and craftsman. Nevertheless, women emerged with a resilience that commanded respect. Survivors became living embodiments of fortitude, imparting lessons from hearthside stories that tightly bound them to the social structure. The dimensions of joy and sorrow intertwined as they welcomed new life while acknowledging its fragile nature. Men found themselves balancing the roles of warrior and craftsman. Blacksmiths, farmers, merchants, forging their identity through trade. Their calloused hands, coupled with bustling markets, painted a picture of a society where survival was closely linked with skill and community. This adaptability became their hallmark, shifting between warfare and work, molded by an era demanding unwavering determination. Beyond physical demands, mental fortitude was essential. Unpredictable conditions ingrained a deep practical understanding of life and death, shaped by the era's uncertainties. Superstition filled the voids where science failed, offering comfort or caution with every whispered story or belief. Medieval villages relied on each other for strength, building psychological defenses amidst turmoil. Stories and songs, however whimsical, offered an escape and a reminder that they faced the challenges of the time together. Folklore and faith merged, soothing the mind like a familiar, comforting cloak. This mental resilience made survival a shared endeavor, weaving camaraderie into the community's core. The ceaseless drum of warfare cast long shadows on families facing daily uncertainty. As men marched to battle, communities sought support internally, strengthening their homes and spirits against the burdens of war. Women took on additional responsibilities, managing households with unwavering resolve. Families clung to each other, transforming hardship into new alliances, creating networks of mutual support and trust. Despite suffering, this unity allowed them to persevere and turn loss into resilience. Memories etched in the collective consciousness were passed down, teaching that history includes not just grand battles, but the struggles of ordinary lives. Nature played a dual role, both provider and adversary in this medieval world. Without modern technology, its unpredictability could turn bounty into hardship. Simple homes bore witness to lives lived in close proximity, where families found warmth and solace against howling winds outside. Farmers observed the skies like wise men, sensing weather's moods to prepare for challenges ahead. Adaptive ingenuity saw them through lean times, ensuring survival with stored provisions and practical measures. This deep connection with the environment grounded them, forging a link between land and life that defied daunting odds. Faith was also an anchor amidst life's turbulence. Beyond ritual, it was the lens through which medieval people viewed their world, offering structure and comfort. Churches and cathedrals stood as testaments to devotion's lasting power. Within these sacred spaces, monks and nuns dedicated their lives to spiritual pursuits, while common folk found the church a source of community as well as divine guidance. Each act of faith was meaningful, instilling fortitude to turn fear into purposeful endurance. Through belief, they discovered paths of charity and connection, maintaining hope in a turbulent world. Medieval justice, deeply entwined with the era's harshness, was swift. Justice systems, often led by lords or community assemblies, aimed for balance rooted in custom and social hierarchy. Punishments were severe, yet seen as divine balance, guiding society's conduct. In these rituals, neighbors reinforced social norms, highlighting the era's shared values. Brewing inadvertently eliminated many risks associated with waterborne disease, as the boiling process acted as a basic form of purification. In stark contrast to the abundance of grain and vegetables, meat was a rarity, often gracing the tables of the wealthy or marking festive occasions. Hunting was a skilled art, closely guarded by the nobility. Ale, the drink of both workers and nobility, was more than a beverage. It was essential sustenance. Contaminated water posed a constant threat, and ale's low alcohol content offered a safer and more nourishing alternative. The brewing craft, primarily handled by women, ranged from domestic chores to small-scale commercial trades. Unlike today's leisure drinks, ale satisfied both thirst and nutrition, often paired with bread to form the simplest, most vital meal of the day. Mindful of the importance of every harvest, medieval folk developed intricate preservation techniques. Pickling, fermenting into sauerkraut, and drying extended the life of vegetables into the colder months. These methods were passed down like sacred law, a necessary testament to their resilience and adaptability. Yet, survival in medieval times demanded maximizing every available resource. Produce was largely seasonal, and kitchens were filled with whatever could be locally foraged or cultivated. Cabbages, turnips, garlic, and leeks adorned their tables, supplemented by wild herbs such as nettles and dandelions. Gathered with meticulous care, grains sustained not only humans, but their livestock as well, thus linking farming life with survival. Festival days provided rare breaks from culinary monotony, but for most, each meal was as predictable as the changing seasons. Through it all, grains ensured everyone continued toiling with purpose, each chew an assurance of another day's strength. Without the advantages of modern preservatives, food preservation was a vital skill. As bread quickly aged and became stale, ingenuity was essential. Thus, the humble trencher, a flat bread used as an edible plate, stood as a testament to a waste-not approach, sustaining people by turning discarded scraps into usefulness. Worlds apart from the lightness of modern loaves, women had the arduous task of crafting these essential portions, transforming raw grain into nourishment through grinding and fermenting. Peasants subsisted on the dense, dark bread of coarser grains, while the wealthy enjoyed the luxury of finer white wheat loaves. Diets were dominated by grains, with bread forming the cornerstone of both peasant and noble meals. Barley, oats, rye, and wheat defined daily existence, and baking depended on availability and season. Bread was more than an accompaniment. It was the essence of sustenance, invariably dense and chewy. Thus, medieval society pulsed with communal strength, where unity was not just advantageous, but essential. Through shared trials and triumphs, these bonds were the threads that held the tapestry of life against the ceaseless winds of fortune. In the medieval world, the phrase daily bread held a meaning far beyond a metaphor. Whether from bandit raids or nature's wrath, communal efforts in defense and resource management were vital. During sieges or raids, everyone, farmer, craftsman, leader, had roles to play in defense. After devastation, communities rebuilt stronger, lessons from adversity reshaping their approach to survival. Monks and scribes, early historians, preserved written knowledge and contributed to the slow spread of literacy, sparking small intellectual currents within communities. Marriage, rarely a personal matter, was driven by strategic alliance building. Often solidified during festivals, these unions strengthened social networks, pooling resources and ensuring lineage continuity, threads reinforcing the community fabric. Kinship networks extended beyond immediate family, providing crucial support, especially during difficult times. They were fundamental to village resilience, offering collective security that individual means could not. Under the shadow of constant external threats, medieval communities relied on these close bonds. Such crises, when managed well, spurred reform and innovation, demonstrating the necessity of unity against an unpredictable world. Knowledge in this era was primarily preserved and shared orally. Storytelling not only entertained, but educated, passing down wisdom and moral lessons that connected generations. Elders, as community memory keepers, shared stories filled with values essential for navigating life's uncertainties. Conflict, inevitable in any group, occasionally escalated into full-blown feuds, yet often forged stronger communities. Resolving disputes required compromise, ultimately enhancing cooperation and resilience. External threats, be it raiders or feudal obligations, demanded joint efforts, rallying under a lord's banner during wars or building defenses. Its bells marked the hours and events, embedding itself in the rhythm of daily existence. The church served as a social safety net, offering charity, education, and care. In crisis, its strong walls provided refuge. Clergy acted as counselors and mediators, blending spiritual guidance with local wisdom. Thus, churches were central to both survival and social cohesion. Despite daily struggles, these moments provided the means to embrace life in unity, maintaining the spirit needed to face future trials. The church was central to this life, more than a spiritual sanctuary, but the heart of the community. It was a gathering place for all, from lords to peasants, shaping village life through regular services and celebrations. Harvest festivals, symbolized by the warmth of a communal hearth, celebrated the fruits of shared labor, offering a break and reaffirming communal purpose. Marriages often occurred during such gatherings, strengthening alliances essential for village stability. Festivals eased disputes, allowing grievances to be addressed in the celebratory atmosphere. Guilds often organized festivals and charity efforts, funding bridges or supporting local welfare, establishing themselves as vital contributors to city life. Within these networks, personal and professional life blended seamlessly into mutual support and societal responsibility. Medieval life was punctuated by seasonal festivals, echoes of pagan traditions intertwined with the Christian calendar. When outbreaks threatened, isolation was practiced with the understanding that those showing symptoms needed to be kept separate. Families were divided and trade halted as towns took steps to protect their populations. The term quarantine originated from this period, from the Italian quaranta, or 40 days that ships spent offshore when suspected of carrying disease. Although we know today these measures were ineffective, they highlight the medieval belief in the tangible dangers of scent and air, a kind of instinctive, primitive reasoning in an age of limited science. Enter quarantine, a concept medieval people adopted despite not understanding infections and germs. The foul-smelling streets of medieval cities were alive with noxious odors from open sewers and crowded humanity mingling with livestock. Smells were suspected of carrying disease, leading to a pursuit of fresher air. Fragrant herbs like lavender became essential, tucked into clothing or hung in homes for protection against the peril lurking in the polluted air. These maladies were often attributed not to bacteria, but to divine anger, or perhaps an unfortunate encounter with a witch's curse. The air was thick with stories spun to explain the inexplicable, where every cough rattled with the threat of something far more dangerous. In this world, the nose was a valuable guide, weaving a complex tapestry of survival into the shared heritage of the past. In the dim alleys of the Middle Ages, disease crept upon its victims without warning, its symptoms mysterious and sinister. Without understanding germs or viruses, medieval people faced illnesses manifesting as high fevers, strange swellings, and dreadful coughs that brought fear into every home. Ultimately, the medieval diet was a testament to survival, adaptability, and ingenuity. Where nature imposed scarcity, humanity extracted abundance through creativity and shared knowledge. Each meal reflected a combination of endurance and tradition, where even the simplest broth held stories of persistence and community. Yet amid such practicality, culinary creativity flourished, unconstrained by modern sensibilities. The medieval palate offered surprises like peacocks roasted and flamboyantly refeathered as centerpieces of opulent banquets, or peculiar confections, blending faraway spices into familiar fare. Nothing edible was discarded, no matter how humble or strange, as shown by dishes made from offal or pies flavored with rose petals. Nobles hosted grand affairs where the bounty of their tables spoke of power and generosity. Mealtimes mirrored the rhythms of faith, periods of indulgence followed by deliberate restraint. Monasteries managed both agricultural production and ecclesiastical schedules, blending spiritual observances with daily practice, anchoring medieval life in a cycle of giving and taking. Food woven into the very fabric of social life brought people together in communal feasting and religious rites. Celebrations displayed abundance, creations born from individual contributions in a symphony of sustenance. Weddings, harvests, and religious festivals were highlights of community life, temporarily dissolving rigid social divides. Salt was common in preservation, yet spices like saffron or cinnamon signified worldly sophistication. Such tastes were primarily accessible to the wealthy, while the humbler folk flavored their meals with homegrown herbs like thyme and parsley. The symbolism spices evoked transcended mere taste. They were emblems of distant lands and alliances beyond the physical, connecting continents through trade and the stories merchants shared. Salting, pickling, and smoking evolved into survival sciences, demanded by a world where oversight could mean ruin. Those with knowledge and resources transformed potentially hazardous decay into controlled preservation, ensuring the cycle of renewal continued, albeit precariously. The pursuit of flavor was a luxury intertwined with social standing. Insured fish were available even in lean times, serving as a dietary staple during religious fasting periods when meat was forbidden. Medieval life was a wary dance with spoilage, a constant adversary in a world without refrigeration. Preservation was both an art and a necessity, with salt serving as a valuable preservative commodity. Poaching carried severe penalties, yet desperation could drive the less fortunate to risk life and limb for precious protein. The pursuit of wild game, whether boar or deer, demanded cunning and patience. For coastal communities, fish offered a more accessible bounty. Seas and rivers yielded their catch to the knowledgeable, and preservation through salting or smoking. Justice was a community effort where social harmony and survival were intimately linked. Finally, trades and crafts formed the core of daily life, weaving resilience into the social fabric. Artisans honed their skills within guilds, fostering a sense of belonging and economic stability. Meticulous craftsmanship provided identity and advancement, where collective enterprise fostered ingenuity. Each crafted item symbolized persistence, a testament to human creativity and the will to endure. It is in these creations that an unwavering spirit lives on, echoing through history's passages as timeless reminders of human endurance. In medieval times, life was closely tied to the village structure, where survival often depended on one's role within this interconnected community. Like a living organism, each person, from the youngest child scaring birds from crops to the elders guiding plows, played a vital part in sustaining life and prosperity. The village's interconnectedness wasn't merely a choice, it was essential. The fields weren't just for one family's labor, but a communal effort. Without formal insurance or safety nets, neighbors became the sole defense against life's uncertainties. In these communities, social rituals linked lives beyond shared work. Gatherings like harvest feasts weren't just for food. They reinforced communal bonds and offered fleeting moments of joy during difficult times. Even the ominous toll of communal bells during danger reminded everyone of their shared fate. Personal disputes had to be set aside for the greater good, knowing the village's survival relied on their collective strength. Land and resources were often communal under the open field system prevalent in Europe. Villagers worked the land together, not alone. Local lords owned the land, yet it was divided into strips where each villager oversaw a portion, ensuring everyone had a stake in the harvest. This unity in labor meant enduring weather's unpredictability together, all hoping for a good yield. Communal mills, ovens, and pastures eased burdens and fostered connections. Even resource disputes had to be handled carefully to maintain the fragile balance of harmony. In the absence of welfare systems, mutual aid networks emerged naturally. Families rallied to support one another in tough times, whether by providing labor, food, or looking after children. Weddings, childbirths, and funerals saw communities unite, strengthening the social weave. This network of interdependence ensured no one faced hardship alone, reinforcing ties that extended beyond survival. During crises like poor harvests or disease outbreaks, the village's social network became a lifeline. Offering bread or to a helping hand reinforced not just charity but social capital, investing in relationships that fortified against external chaos. Urban settings offered a different form of community through guilds and brotherhoods. These trade-based groups ensured craftsmen had support and protection. Guilds dictated training, safeguarded trade secrets, and provided assistance during illness or death, cultivating a shared purpose. They were also community pillars. This practice, born of communal vigilance, speaks to an instinctive need for survival, evident despite the limitations of the time. One image from this era stands out more vividly than any other. The iconic figure of the plague doctor, dressed in a dark cloak and the eerie beak-like mask filled with scented herbs intended to ward off the invisible threat. These figures have become symbols of both a desperate attempt to combat disease and the blend of medieval medicine with symbolism and magic. While the mask offered little real protection, it embodied hope, a talisman against the terror ravaging communities. Plague doctors, willing to face the horrors others feared, became comforting symbols, emblems of resistance against relentless adversaries. For those seeking remedies, the medieval landscape offered apothecaries who sold nature's bounty as cures. Herbs like rosemary, sage, and garlic held more than culinary value. They were precious commodities in the fight against ailments. These healers, often guided by generational traditions, mixed potions and brews, relying on the perceived powers of plants to heal the sick. This intricate interaction with nature, despite its primitive origins, underscores a remarkable adaptation, where survival was a test of both knowledge and the instinct to innovate. If one couldn't be healed by herbs, perhaps protection lay in the mystical. The lines between medicine and magic blurred in this age. Relying on talismans and amulets, people sought to influence fortune in their favor, arming themselves with symbols intended to ward off disease. These charms, whether elaborate or simple, served as tangible shields for those navigating the challenges of medieval life. Despite their unlikely effectiveness, they provided comfort and a sense of control amidst chaos, reflecting an era where the supernatural was as much a part of daily life as bread or water. The Black Death left an indelible mark on Europe, transforming how societies approached disease and death. This scourge decimated populations, leading to changes in burial practices and rituals surrounding mortality. Communities adapted, innovating traditions to suit their grim new reality. As survival itself became a communal guiding principle, the strength of shared suffering led to a collective resilience, with processions and acts of penance aimed at appeasing divine displeasure. These responses highlight both the adaptability of the time and the human heart's capacity to draw strength from shared hardship. Religious belief stood as a steadfast pillar amidst the epidemic storms. Churches served dual purposes as sanctuaries for the sick and places for abundant prayers. Clergy, believed to have a direct connection to divine intervention, became central figures in health crises. The faithful clung to the idea that illness held meaning within God's plan, offering explanation and solace when nothing else could. Religion became a salve for the soul, binding communities through ritual and shared hope, a lifeline in the impenetrable darkness of disease. The world of medieval medicine was vast, filled with practitioners ranging from university-educated doctors to village healers employing folk wisdom. As these varied figures practiced their trade, the era revealed a spectrum of medical approaches as diverse as the societies they came from. Whether it was a learned physician using leeches to balance humors or a local healer brewing herbal potions, this diversity allowed for a flourishing of medical thought, even when efficacy fell short by modern standards. Amidst the true healers, charlatans could be found, exploiting fear with miracle cures and questionable elixirs. Despite the limitations, medieval methods of disease prevention reveal a remarkable portrait of resilience and adaptability. From quarantine to the comfort provided by spiritual beliefs, these approaches continue to resonate through time, reminding us of humanity's relentless drive to persevere in the face of unimaginable trials. The ingenuity and stubbornness of those who survived offer a lens through which we can appreciate the advancements made since in the realm of medicine. In a world engaged in a perpetual battle against the unknown, these stories stand as a testament to the power of hope and tenacity. In the dimly lit and smoky interiors of medieval taverns, where the clinking of mugs was louder than words, laughter served as a silent defiance against life's relentless hardships. It bridged social divides as jesters and minstrels, wandering satirists, traveled the land, delivering sharp jokes about nobility and caricaturing the absurdity of feudal society. With each witticism, they offered the oppressed a momentary relief, a subtle lifting of spirits in a world that allowed little room for such luxury. Yet, in villages perpetually overshadowed by the specter of death and disease, humor persisted. A strain of grim and knowing humor, deeply rooted in folktales, emerged. Tales of the danse macabre dared to touch upon the dark, confronting the living with their inevitable fate and turning mortality into a shared, almost defiant acceptance. In this communal acknowledgement of life's brevity, bonds were formed, as if facing life's end with a smirk could ward off the chill of inevitability. Laughter was not merely an escape, it was a declaration of defiance, carving out pockets of joy in a vast landscape of despair. In this world, music played a role far beyond simple entertainment. It became the lifeblood of storytelling, weaving emotional expression into the social fabric. Fields echoed with communal songs, melodies that not only synchronized labor, but also provided an auditory comfort against the monotonous and backbreaking toil. As villagers worked the land with calloused hands, their songs cultivated a sense of shared identity and purpose, binding isolated communities with threads of harmony. Music's power extended beyond the fields and imbued life's milestones with significance. From birth's first cries to solemn reflections at funerals, within monastery walls, monks chanted spiritual truths, while troubadours spread news through lyrical tales. Here, music was both teaching and escapism, creating a space where life's trials found release through ethereal soundscapes. For medieval people relying on word of mouth, songs became the vehicle for both education and temporary transcendence from physical suffering. Folktales mirrored the medieval psyche, intertwining fantastical elements with societal truths. In the flicker of firelight or the bustling taverns, these tales offered a retreat from tangible hardships. They spun narratives of heroes overcoming the otherworldly, reflecting listeners' real-life battles through allegory. These stories showcase societal understandings of morality, justice, and folly. Cautionary tales served to warn against human excesses, while stories of transformation promised hope and redemption. Even in a world limited by low literacy, oral traditions preserved community wisdom, turning enchantment into reflection and guidance. In stark contrast to everyday struggles, carnivals and festivals erupted with sanctioned chaos, moments where social norms were inverted and peasants donned regal disguises. These joyful interludes infused life with camaraderie and catharsis, giving peasants a rare taste of liberation from their arduous existence. The rhythm of dance and theatrical performances, coupled with indulgence in feasts and ale, mark these occasions as vibrant affirmations of life, simple yet profound in their fleeting joy. Yet within the splendor of feasts resided jesters and fools, figures who, beneath their colorful facades, held the power to critique even kings. They delivered sharp observations wrapped in jest, walking the fine line between foolishness and wisdom. With puns and antics, they encouraged self-awareness, and even the most watchful monarchs found value in their insightful mockery. In a hierarchical world, jesters broke conventions, using humor to express timeless truths amidst the tangled webs of paradox. Dance also provided liberation through its varied forms, from simple round dances under starry skies to the intricate steps of courtly displays. Movement allowed medieval people to transcend societal constraints. Whether kneeling in worship or leaping in celebration, dance was a language articulated beyond words, creating lasting memories within the collective consciousness. It offered a chance to reclaim agency over bodies and spirits in a world marked by uncertainty. Storytelling, meanwhile, anchored medieval oral traditions, sustaining cultural continuity in the absence of written records. Elders, guardians of memory, spun epic sagas that bridge past and present, imparting values through narrative. Origin stories and legends explain the inexplicable, comforting listeners by wrapping the unknown in relatable narrative structures. Through these stories, communities reinforced identity, providing a reservoir of shared knowledge and fostering a powerful collective identity. Even the simple act of drinking brought people together with a candid joy that seemed perpetually on the verge of overflowing into laughter. Ale and mead not only quenched thirst, but also rekindled connections, transforming taverns into spaces of release. Beneath the buzz of inebriation, social barriers softened and human connections unfolded. This gathering around communal tables unlocked the barriers of social rank, opening the floor to unrestrained joy and camaraderie. Despite the world's strife, medieval celebrations reaffirmed life's worth through joy, rebellion in the form of merriment. Festivities marked by games and feasts bridged the agricultural and ecclesiastical calendars, punctuating time with exultant affirmations of life and bonding. Within these gatherings, survival was celebrated, transcending basic existence through shared joy. In laughing and singing together, medieval people found the courage and resilience to embrace another dawn, transforming hardship into a tapestry colored with moments of unexpected brightness. Imagine living in a time where every shadow seemed to conceal a lurking demon, and any sudden chill or ache might be a curse in disguise. This was the medieval world, a flickering landscape of faith and superstition, where fear and hope intertwined in equal measure. People in those times clung to their beliefs like a shipwrecked sailor clutches a lifeline. Faith was not merely a set of rules and dogma, it was the lens through which they interpreted all of existence. Amid the ravages of plague and the chaos of war, faith was their guiding star, a melody that soothed restless souls and stitched their days together with invisible threads. The beauty of faith lay in its multifaceted presence. It was in the grand cathedrals, resplendent with stained glass glory, and in the quiet village churches where communal prayers resonated among wooden rafters. Sundays were more than just a break from toil. They were communal heartbeats, a chance to reset the moral compass in an unruly world. Pilgrimages brought healing and miracles, while relics believed to radiate divine energy bound individuals to a sacred narrative that insisted suffering had purpose, woven into a celestial tapestry beyond human comprehension. The church itself was the golden thread in the medieval life fabric, transcending spiritual guidance to become a formidable administrative and economic entity. Owning vast tracts of land, the church wielded power, and its reach extended across every station of life. Parish bells echoed across fields, marking the rhythms of birth, celebrations, and mournful farewells. Through sacraments and rituals, baptisms, marriages, last rites, the church imparted a sacred rhythm to life, overseeing milestones and establishing societal norms and laws that sought to reflect a divine justice and order. Embarking on a pilgrimage was a journey of heart and spirit, a tiring trek along perilous roads where saints were said to offer healing and miracles. They were pathways not just for personal devotion, but also communal mingling, a cross-section of medieval society where nobles rubbed shoulders with peasants, merchants, and monks, all bound by a shared holy purpose. Along these routes, stories and ideas were exchanged as eagerly as goods, with travelers finding refuge in monasteries that offered sanctuary against both elements and bandits. These pilgrimages, fraught with dangers but rich in spiritual significance, elevated travel to an act of divine offering. In this age of mysticism, saints were revered as celestial intermediaries who played guardian roles long after their earthly lives had ended. The faithful clung to tales of saintly visions and interventions, each story a balm for weary souls and a glimpse of virtues to aspire to. Relics, bones, garments, holy artifacts were not just sacred remnants but bridges to the divine. Monasteries hoarded these treasures, attracting pilgrims seeking cures and solace. To merely touch a relic was to touch the divine, an experience that reaffirmed faith's potential to enrich mortal life with eternal promise.
Спокойной ночи, благодарю вас за внимание, подписывайтесь на канал, ставьте лайки, до новых встреч.
Care for the sick and charity for the poor, fortresses of faith and resilience in tumultuous times. Yet medieval faith was not without its internal conflicts. Beneath the surface lay deep theological divides, clashes between orthodoxy and heresy that erupted in councils and public squares. Those deviating from accepted doctrines faced scorn and persecution, their defiance shaking the Church's claim to unity. Heresy trials and the Inquisition were grim countermeasures, tools to eliminate doctrinal dissent and solidify church authority. Yet amidst these brutal conflicts, faith's debate sharpened, refining the very tenets they sought to protect. The Virgin Mary emerged as a nurturing figure, bridging the divine and human. Her veneration spanned society, offering tenderness and hope to those seeking solace from life's harshness. Marian devotion was woven through art and song, providing comfort and reinforcing views on womanhood and compassion. In the medieval worldview, life was a prelude to eternity, with heaven's promise and hell's threat guiding behaviors and beliefs. Heaven was a beacon of eternal bliss, while hell, depicted in sermons in frightful colors, reminded believers of the consequences of sin. The sale of indulgences highlighted the interplay between grace and ecclesiastical power, offering tangible relief from the looming penalties of damnation. Life was seen as an eternal performance, actions echoing in the grand celestial drama of moral progress. Amidst this structured belief, mysticism offered a pathway to personal spiritual insight. Visionaries like Hildegard of Bingen sought direct communion with the divine, preferring inner revelation to dogma. Such mystical experiences democratized faith, suggesting a path accessible to all who sought depth and intimacy with the divine. Thus, faith in the Middle Ages was a cornerstone of resilience, shaping a narrative of sanctified purpose through all circumstances. It was woven through daily life in grand cathedrals, supported by whispered prayers and sacred songs. Even today, the legacy of this era lingers, reminding us of the human endeavor to connect with the majestic and the eternal. Just as the faithful clung to their beliefs as a lifeline, this chapter invites you to reflect on how these ancient convictions continue to inspire resilience and hope, a reminder of humanity's steadfast search for meaning amidst chaos. If this intriguing glimpse into medieval life sparked your curiosity or your appetite, please give us a like. And if you're hungry for more raw tales from history's darker corners, subscribe to Medieval Grime. We serve our history smoked, salted, and with a touch of wit. Thanks for watching. Stay grimy, and we'll see you next time by the fire. In the shadowy labyrinths of medieval life, survival often depended on the skill of knowing when to disappear from view. The land was rife with dangers, from roving army bands to arbitrary lords whose whims could mean ruin. For many villagers, the instinct to flee was not a sign of cowardice, but a calculated strategy. The muffled whispers of approaching night, shifts in the wind, or the unsettling quiet of busy roads served as nature's warnings, prompting them to pack what they could carry and vanish into the unknown. Departures were not impulsive acts. They marked the severed ties with everything familiar, yet they were often the thread that stitched together the tapestry of survival. Traveling the Middle Ages' dangerous roads was an adventure story written with sweat and fear. Bandits lurked, rocks obstructed paths. Yet no intruder knew the land as intimately as those who grew up on it. Hidden roots in nature's secret places, like river currents and dense woods, became trusted allies in this ceaseless dance of evasion. Escaping was not just leaving danger. It was about transplanting a village's spirit to take root elsewhere, demanding courage and a chameleon-like adaptability to the terrain and threats. Each decision to flee spoke of an ancestral training in endurance and ingenuity, but some chose not to flee. They embedded themselves into the common fabric, mastering the art of invisibility in plain sight. Particularly for outsiders, Jews, heretics, or others labeled as different, merging into village life was an existential performance. Adaptation was vital. From mastering local dialects to adopting customs like a second skin, sometimes even changing names like shadows under the moon. Routes to survival included leading double lives, weaving themselves into the trust networks of communities as ordinary figures with a hidden lore, the weaver as the village soothsayer or the merchant of whispers. These were humble heroes of clandestine survival, impeccably skilled in the social dance of trust and mistrust. The scent of survival also carried the tang of silent defiance. Some did not shrink into the background, nor flee into the horizon. They chose to stand firm and bring their voices together in hushed agreements. Rebellions were sparked from simple tavern murmurs or moonlit gatherings over secret plans. These were not wild dreams of revolution, but rather orchestrations planned by leaders who, with remarkable calm, fueled fervor into purpose. Wat Tyler's rebellion tells of peasants who, though limited in means, possessed unity in numbers. Their desire for fairness amplified their whisper to a roar. Resistance was not simply armed conflict. It took myriad forms: passive deceit, the refusal to obey unjust decrees, or the subversion of labor. These actions, though perilous, proclaimed a subtle form of rebellion, hinting that oppression found its opposite in unity and quiet defiance. Meanwhile, the medieval landscape offered sanctuaries for those in need. Sheltered valleys and thick forests, beyond merely offering concealment, became thriving microcosms of life. Sherwood Forest, forever etched in imagination by Robin Hood, symbolizes many untamed havens where those fleeing justice or injustice form new communities, establishing self-governance amidst the whispers of leaves. These communities were not lawless refugees, but vibrant societies skilled at living off the land, adept bushcrafters who intuitively understood nature's bounty. The figure of the medieval bandit, both admired and feared, blurred the line between survival and rebellion. Names like Robin Hood became legendary, yet they represented the phenomenon of disenfranchised individuals driven to banditry, a last resort for those alienated by fate's inequalities. They were not shadowy criminals, but folk heroes shaped by and against the currents of their times. Manifestations of defiance, serving as reminders that power and justice extended beyond decrees and dungeons. Living by their own codes, these clandestine sheriffs imposed a form of justice and autonomy, gathering covert support as they navigated the sharp edge of survival, that precarious balance between order and resistance. Running parallel to these exploits were underground networks, medieval arteries pulsing with risk and resilience. Bonds of trade intertwined seamlessly with those of insurrection, connecting cities, hamlets, and often warring realms. Where words failed, codes nestled in letters, subtle signs, and trusted couriers bridged silences, defying regimes and carving pathways through stone and shadow. These hidden threads of defiance stretched across the land, supporting those yearning for freedom, religious liberty, or survival, relying heavily on faith, ingenuity, and the courage that united them. Secret societies thrived defiantly under medieval oppression, sometimes disguised as harmless guilds or devout circles. Yet within their walls, plotting subversion and sanctuary. Membership was a perilous privilege, offering the safety of community, yet also risking the noose or flames upon discovery. These enclaves, like ancient oaths, preserved knowledge when it was under siege. Even as alchemical societies and mystical orders guarded their secrets amidst the threat of obliteration, they perpetuated hope, a testament to the resilience and the enduring desire for a different world. In a time when a mere conviction could lead to burning at the stake, resolve itself became a crucible for courage. Heretics carried truth's relics. Their martyrdoms reshaped cultural narratives even as their ashes were still warm. Legends like Joan of Arc echo the paradox where holding beliefs could either ignite revolutions or posthumously drape martyrs in saintly cloaks. These martyrs embodied an unyielding dance between enslavement and liberation. Women, so often relegated to history's shadows, emerged as crucial weavers of this resistance tapestry. They were spies, midwives of revolution, carriers of forbidden truths. Figures such as Hildegard of Bingen influenced cultural tides through philosophical and spiritual undercurrents. Within households and beyond, women shaped the lineage of resistance with grace and stealth. Women, so often relegated to history's shadows, emerged as crucial weavers of this resistance tapestry. They were spies, midwives of revolution, carriers of forbidden truths. Figures such as Hildegard of Bingen influenced cultural tides through philosophical and spiritual undercurrents. Within households and beyond, women shaped the lineage of resistance with grace and stealth. In the medieval tapestry of life, power was not always what it seemed. Women weaving their influence into the fabric of society found unique strength through midwifery. As a lifeline during childbirth and community mentors in health and herbal remedies, midwives held an unacknowledged authority. Their role, vital yet understated, allowed women to move beyond domestic confines, embracing a power that was both crucial and cautiously respected. Yet they faced the peril of suspicion and blame, balancing on a sharp edge of reverence and fear. In a world where male doctors often dismissed their expertise, these women carved out a realm where they protected life with resilience and quiet wisdom. Meanwhile, peasants, often mere shadows in the grand medieval hall, sometimes erupted into vivid, fiery revolts. When relentless taxes and the tyranny of landowners pressed too hard, the tillers of the soil rose up. These uprisings were a chaotic expression of dissent, a simmering rage that disrupted the entrenched hierarchies. Though many revolts met brutal ends, they shook the foundations enough to demand consideration. Peasant voices, usually silenced by their labor's grind, found power in unity, forcing even the most entrenched lords to occasionally heed demands for a fairer existence. Amidst these chaotic elements, some within the church itself dared to confront its own deep-seated corruption. Reformists like John Wycliffe and Jan Hus challenged the church's excesses, driven by a moral compass rather than ecclesiastical power. Their defiance stemmed from profound inner conviction. Yet this ecclesiastical rebellion came with peril: persecution, excommunication, or worse. Despite these risks, their clear calls laid the groundwork for future reformations. Their voices echoing through time showed that dissent could take root deep within the institution it sought to transform, fostering change where none had seemed possible. In the quiet halls of scriptoria, scribes found power in preservation. Their laborious task of copying text became a subtle form of defiance against censorship's heavy hand. By preserving forbidden or controversial works, scribes wielded a quiet but steadfast authority over the narrative of history. Their every inked stroke echoed with the potent understanding that knowledge is power. Through these clandestine acts of preservation, they ensured that ideas, the essence of life and curiosity, survived beyond oppressive eras, wrapped in the musty, precious parchment of survival. On the cobbled streets and cluttered stalls of medieval markets, the poor showcased their own brand of ingenuity. Faced with bare subsistence, they turned adversity into art, crafting tools from scraps and clothes from cast-offs. Their homes evolved with the seasons, a humble yet ingenious adaptation, ensuring comfort against the elements. This everyday alchemy was born not of choice, but of necessity. Through communal wisdom and oral tradition, they maximized their meager resources, embodying an untold strength, a silent revolution of creativity born from harsh constraint. Away from the din of battlefields, women engaged in their own warfare, navigating the complex chessboard of marriage and estate management. Whether through negotiating critical alliances or bargaining in bustling markets, women wielded quiet influence that rippled through social and political landscapes. Figures like Eleanor of Aquitaine made indelible marks on European power dynamics, illustrating how indirect influence was profoundly significant. In these strategic maneuverings, women turned societal confinements into avenues of power, skillfully ensuring their family's survival in a turbulent world. The silent enclaves of monasteries and convents held their own sway over the medieval world. These sanctuaries were cradles of learning and guardians of wisdom, preserving ancient texts with unwavering dedication. Within these walls, monks and nuns quietly advanced education and healthcare, seeding transformative ideas into society. Gender norms sometimes bent within these havens, allowing women administrative and educational roles that defied the outside status quo. In cloistered silence, religious enclaves nurtured cultural and intellectual shifts, subtly bridging chasms in a strife-torn era. Amidst the clang of hammers and the hiss of bellows, craftsmen wielded a unique authority rooted not in bloodline, but in skill. Their creations formed the backbone of medieval infrastructure, making them indispensable to community function. Through guilds, these artisans gained a voice and fair working conditions, transforming individual skill into collective strength. In a world vulnerable to catastrophe, craftsmen's mastery provided stability, literally constructing civilization anew with every chisel stroke and forge heat. Echoing through the ages, folklore wrapped memories and lessons in tales of daring and cunning. These stories, shared around flickering fires, were bastions of communal wisdom and cultural identity. Within their fantastical narratives lay subversive critiques of authority and affirmations of resilience. By weaving lessons into engaging tales, folklore fortified communities with resilience and identity, providing a means to navigate societal dynamics subtly. Minstrels, chroniclers, and poets captured the essence of human experience, their songs and writings resonating through generations. Their tales preserved histories both grand and grim, often omitted from official records. Music, poetry, and prose served as vessels of continuity, binding society with narratives that illuminated the humanity within historical epics. In their dedication to storytelling, they embodied the profound power of memory, ensuring that voices across time resonated loudly in the collective consciousness. Through their work, the medieval tapestry of life was painted indelibly vibrant, illustrating that even in the margins of history, power thrived in the most unexpected places. In the tapestry of medieval life, death was a constant presence, its shadow cast over every village and hamlet. Unlike today, where it is often kept at a distance by hospital walls and funeral homes, in the Middle Ages, it was deeply woven into everyday existence. Life expectancy was tragically low, and childhood illnesses, minor by current standards, claimed many young lives. Every family bore the sting of early loss, and communities were no strangers to mourning. This ever-present mortality shaped a unique approach to grief, with ceremonies transforming sorrow into a shared experience. Families came together not to hide their grief, but to face it collectively, seeking solace and strength in communal bonds. Mourning in medieval times was not an isolated affair, but a public tapestry of grief, threaded with layers of significance. It brought order to the chaos of death, transforming it into a series of predictable rites. A customary vigil marked the first stage, where the body dressed in its finest attire lay surrounded by loved ones who kept watch, sharing personal stories and anecdotes that secured the deceased's place in collective memory. In these moments, the air was filled with whispers of old tales and budding nostalgia as the community fortified itself against the inevitable void left behind. The vigil would transition into a procession toward the church, an event steeped in solemnity and solidarity. Church bells tolled mournfully, a resonant reminder of life's transient nature, as villagers paused in their daily toil to join the march. The funeral mass, delivered in Latin, might have been a linguistic mystery to many, yet its familiar melodies and fragrant incense offered comfort, standing as constants in a world of uncertainties. From whispered prayers to the rustle of coins and almsgiving, these acts, however routine, transform grief into a collective journey, reaffirming faith in community bonds. Within this framework of elaborate ritual, offerings became tangible symbols of memory. In a time before photographs or personal diaries, cherished objects gained immense significance. Belongings placed with the deceased, be they talismans, heirloom jewelry, or religious texts, bridged the gap between the living and the departed, keeping connections alive. This practice extended beyond graves to daily life, where masses were commissioned and donations made in honor of those who had passed, ensuring their spirit lingered in communal consciousness. Journeys of pilgrimage offered another layer of remembrance, rooted in the intertwining of grief and spiritual exploration. These expeditions to sacred sites were not mere religious formality. They embodied physical quests for healing and reflection. Travelers, bound by shared losses and hopes for divine intervention, formed bonds as they traversed landscapes, their footsteps echoing prayers for the souls of the departed. This movement towards shrines and relics was symbolic, a physical manifestation of yearning for solace and redemption, both for themselves and those who lived on in memory. Folklore and superstition permeated these expressions of grief, deepening the texture of medieval mourning with rich cultural threads. While religious doctrine predominated, it left spaces where tales of spectral beings and otherworldly guardians flourished, making sense of death's mysteries. These stories served dual purposes. They both intrigued and consoled, offering communities a framework within which to place their survivors. Figures such as the Grim Reaper personified death, while legacies of good deaths imbued, passing with meaning and relative predictability. The church, a cornerstone of medieval life, provided not only spiritual guidance, but secured the theological threads that knitted together the period's death rituals. As enactors of funeral rites, priests guided families, translating personal grief into structured, faith-driven practices. These rites and the intercession of saints sought to ease mourning, sanctifying the deceased's passage to the afterlife. Meanwhile, monasteries preserved memories and legacies within their tombs, each recorded name a defiance against time's erasing hand. Seasonal rites became communal ceremonies of memory, aligning with ecclesiastical milestones. Feasts like All Saints and All Souls' Day invited collective reflection on mortality. Bonfires and processions stirred the senses, uniting villages in an act of remembrance, celebrating ancestral bonds that outlived mortal life. These events were sensory rituals where the warmth of shared fires and communal meals imbued life with enduring significance, reinforcing solidarity amidst the cycle of seasons. Art, too, played its intricate part, with iconography infusing public and private domains with rich symbolism. From stone effigies to vibrant manuscripts, art provided consolation, narrating stories of life, death, and eternal salvation. Grave inscriptions and plaques preserved these tales, chronicling lives and virtues, serving as a dialogue between the living and the legacy of those gone. Symbols like hourglasses and skulls offered visual reminders of life's brevity, echoing the memento mori in the ambient consciousness. Through storytelling, grief found another dimension of expression. Medieval villages gathered around the hearth, recounting tales that honored the dead, anchoring them in communal memory. These narratives offered collective solace, tying personal grief to the broader tapestry of human experience and resilience. Wisdom flowed through generations, with widows and elders as cultural custodians, weaving a continuity that spanned beyond individual life. Ultimately, medieval rituals affirmed a commitment to renewal amidst life's ceaseless hardships. They were opportunities to transform personal and communal pain into collective acts of remembrance, sparking resilience and reflection. In an era perpetually challenged by adversity, ceremonies offered both closure and continuity, celebrating the enduring journey of the human spirit through the ages. In the medieval world, the four horsemen of the apocalypse were not just a myth. They were realities, descending with grim regularity. Villages often found themselves trampled by the hooves of conquest. Famine stalked their fields like a hungry phantom, and disease draped towns in a shroud of silence. Yet amidst these forces, the spirit of the people steadfastly refused to yield. Tenacity was not an option. It was essential as they clung fiercely to life's delicate thread, refusing to let it completely unravel. After each disaster, stories of survival emerged like phoenixes from the ruins. Devastated villages rebuilt, learning to adapt as naturally as breathing. They tightened communal bonds, shared in grief, and steeled themselves for the next onslaught. Understanding life was as fleeting as a shadow, yet fiercely precious. Time itself, marked by the relentless progression of seasons, mirrored their resilience. Winter's bitter grip tested their limits, demanding endurance and rationing of dwindling supplies. Spring, however, brought renewal, allowing them to sow seeds and dream of abundance. Their existence was a precarious dance with nature. But within this dance, they forged a routine, a rhythm that promised hope, even in the bleakest of times. This cyclical view translated into a deep-seated understanding of life and death, a continuous thread rather than a finite story, teaching them that after every harsh winter, a hopeful rebirth awaited. Community was the lifeline anchoring them through this cycle of life. Towns and villages were woven into tight social fabrics where resources and responsibilities were shared. The saying, "It takes a village," was a mantra echoing through their survival stories. In times of crisis, these networks grew even tighter. Neighbors shared what little they had, supported the frail during sickness, and came together to fend off invaders. This communal spirit ensured that survival was not an individual endeavor, but a collective triumph, not forced by necessity, but embraced through shared understanding. Amidst life's harsh realities, faith shone as a beacon of hope. The promise of heaven was solace against earthly trials, offering a light that pierced through the darkest moments. The church, with its grand cathedrals and humble chapels, was the epicenter of life, a compass guiding moral and practical decisions amidst adversity. This conviction in an afterlife didn't encourage passivity. It fueled compassion, nurturing communities, and amplifying resilience in the face of daunting challenges. Art and creativity provided another lifeline. Despite the era's adversities, the period was rich in creative expression. Tales told by flickering fires, music blossoming in village squares, tapestries capturing legends, all offered mental refuge. Storytelling was a vessel not only for amusement, but for preservation of culture and resilience, allowing for reinterpretation of harsh realities and making complex truths accessible. Artistic endeavors brightened the drudgery of daily life and fostered connections, serving as mirrors reflecting challenges and hopes, offering solace in moments of cathartic humor. Memento mori, the contemplation of life's impermanence, didn't cloak them in despair, but rather filled them with appreciation for the present. It urged purposeful living to savor every moment and strengthen community as they celebrated life's transient pleasures. Feasts, vibrant defiance against impermanence, became affirmations of life, demanding that joy never be lost, even when overshadowed by mortality. This acknowledgement of life's swift passage encouraged harmony, where accumulated wealth meant little compared to the legacies of kindness and resilience left behind. Necessity, often life's harsh taskmaster, spurred innovation. The era bore witness to creative leaps in agriculture and architecture. The heavy plow empowered lands to yield sustenance, while crop rotation preserved fertility against relentless hunger. Windmills harnessed nature's power to grind grains, freeing time from exhaustion's grip. Castles emerged, fortresses of defense woven with artistry. Social fabrics evolved as guilds strengthened trade. Markets grew into cultural hubs, and town charters exemplified governance. Innovation here wasn't a luxury. It was survival's currency, humanity's testament to resilience, not merely through strength, but through boundless intellect and adaptability. Rituals formed the structure against life's uncertainty, imbuing the mundane with sacred brilliance. Liturgies, feast days, marriages, and funerals marked life's passages, offering stability and control amidst upheaval. Customs linked the individual to past generations, preserving cultural identity and connecting present struggles to the eternal human experience. These rituals, surviving through adversity, reinforced community bonds and imbued individual lives with the resilience fostered through shared belief and tradition. In the end, the medieval narrative is one of adaptability, a silent hero patiently weaving itself through the ages. Each change, every adaptation, from evolving governance to embracing new farming techniques, spoke to a profound understanding that inflexibility leads to demise. Migration sought abundance, not familiarity. Governance evolved to address changing social structures. As trade routes expanded, so did medieval minds, embracing spices and philosophies that broadened perspectives and enriched lives. This legacy is a testament to a timeless lesson. Amid constant change, adaptability remains humanity's enduring hero. Ultimately, the tale of medieval perseverance converges into a powerful constant, an unbreakable human spirit. Through relentless trials, communities rebuilt, transforming adversity into stories of resilience. Their spirit transcended faith, class, and borders, declaring not with words but actions that survival was the ultimate defiance. Their laughter in the face of hardship reflected a deeper understanding that life's beauty lay not in ease, but in overcoming. However harsh the winters of circumstance, the flame of life flickered resiliently, fueled by an unyielding belief in tomorrow's dawn and an unwavering hope for renewal.